Jiraiya is finally starting to figure out how to tell Naruto how to summon a big old toad. So Nick, are you going to be going over in your standard amount of detail about what happens in the first 28 episodes of Frieren so that we all have the best possible understanding of everything we could going into season 2? No, I'm not. I recently did a video called Everything You Need to Know About Hell's Paradise Before Season 2, where I just talked about the first 13 episodes of Hell's Paradise, aka Season 1, and that video was 41 minutes long. And while I would love to put a 2-hour video essay out talking all about Season 1 of Frieren and how great it is, I don't run a labor camp.
I disagree with Season 1 being good, but then again, I'm biased because I just really don't like Frieren, the anime, for some apparent reason. I don't know. Will Frieren season 2 be bad? Honestly, I don't know. I don't want to, be biased or anything, but I want to say yes, but we'll see. Can it live up to season 1 that everybody, everyone was like so hyped for and loved? I guess season 1 worked for people. Season 2, I feel like it just won't have that luxury, like it did in season 1. Strip away all the praise and awards and the emotional clip flooding of social media. I feel like there's like a comfortable truth kind of underneath that we'll see in season 2, where like, all right, it'll probably just be stale and everyone. Not everyone, but like more people realize that he's like Frieren as anime is probably won't be that good. I meant season 2 won't be that good of Frieren.
But I genuinely believe that might kill Cody. It took us 3 months to put out the Konoha 12 versus 1A video. And thus the breakdown of season 1 that we're going to be talking about today is going to be highly detailed, but relatively concise. If you want every single detail of what happened in season 1 of Frieren, well, go watch season 1 of Frieren or read the first 60 chapters. Today we're going to be mostly focusing on the characters that are introduced in season 1, their motivations, and their backstories. And considering the fact that Frieren is a highly character-driven story, that's pretty much all you need. With that being said, let's hop right into it. Starting off with the first of 4 story arcs we're going to be talking about, the Beyond Journey's End arc. See, Frieren is called Frieren Beyond Journey's End because the entirety of Frieren's story takes place after what would usually be defined as the standard anime story. See, because the story begins at what is the end of an epic 10-year-long journey to defeat the Demon King of Frieren's world. We don't get to see the battle against the Demon King, we just get to see the party that defeated him. A party comprised of Frieren, an immortal elf, Himmel, a human warrior who's kind of deemed the leader of the group, Heiter, a drunk yet compassionate priest who acts as their healer, and Aizen, a stoic dwarf who acts as their tank. Now, at the conclusion of their journey, they return back to the city that had tasked them with the extermination of the Demon King in the first place. They receive their gold and their parade and their party for a job well done. And all of the mortals in the party, that being Heiter, Himmel, and Aizen, deem that the completion of this task is, well, enough work done for a whole life. However, Frieren, who's immortal and therefore this 10-year-long journey is but a blip in the ocean of her life, decides to leave the mortals of the group behind, vowing to see them once again in 50 years to watch the Era's Comet, which they watched after they defeated the demon. And while these 50 years passed in the blink of an eye, for Frieren, the humans in the group, these 50 years made up the majority of their lives. And thus when Frieren returned after 50 years, she was shocked by the fact that all of these young and spry and powerful people she had traveled with previously were now old and decrepit.
That's another thing with Frieren. Like, of course, they're going to be old, Frieren. If you leave for 50 years, you come back, of course. Of course, they're going to be old. Season 1 of Frieren I feel like it just came at a perfect time. It hit at a perfect time for fans, for anime fans. Anime fans are probably exhausted for like all these other animes. Too many power systems, too much screaming, too many stakes that didn't feel like earned. Frieren arrived quietly. I feel like slow pacing, reflective dialogue, that kind of just slow pacing just is not it for me. But Frieren's strength is probably its biggest weakness. The slow pacing felt profound in season 1, can easily become like boring. So that's probably why I don't like Frieren. I feel like a lot of other people don't like Frieren as well because of that. I feel like we're gonna see the same thing in season 2. It's just going to be like slow pacing and it's just going to be boring. The emotional silence that felt deep can turn into like repetitive repetition. The character introspection that once felt like meaningful risks became like predictable. Season 1 benefited from the first impression, but season 2, I feel like it won't be the same. I feel like we already know what's going to come from this.
And after her, Himmel, Heiter, and Eisen schlepped all the way out to a hill far outside of the city to watch the Era's comet. Himmel passes away of old age. And it's at this moment that Frieren realizes that she barely knew him, and he might have been the love of her life. And thus the backbone of Frieren's entire story is built. See, because Frieren knows of a land to the far, far north of the continent that she lives on called Oriold, which apparently is the land of the souls, a place where people are able to talk to their deceased loved ones. And thus Frieren makes the resolution to travel all the way to the most northern part of her continent in order to speak to Himmel once again. And thus the journey after Hero's End begins. Now on this journey, one of the first things that Frieren does is seek out Heiter, the drunk priest from her former journey. And when Frieren does come across Heiter, we're introduced to the person who becomes the co-main protagonist of this story, Fern. See, Fern is an orphan whose parents were killed in a war in the southern part of Frieren's continent. And Heiter, who's stopped drinking and actually kind of found the way of God, uses the ending of his life, which he actually extends with magic, in order to trick Frieren into taking Fern under her care. See, Heiter tells Frieren in all of the magical books that he's collected over the course of his mortal life, and one of them there's a spell for immortality. And thus Heiter essentially tricks Frieren into spending years with Heiter and Fern, looking for a spell for immortality that Heiter knows doesn't exist.
To me, this where like there's like a bunch of times where like within the anime where like Frieren thrives off of subtle changes and decades passing and emotions barely shifting and growth and stuff like that. And that works once, but season 2, I feel like this is not going to work in season 2. Some points in the anime, I feel like I was asking myself, like, where's this going? Like,
however, over the course of those years, Heiter tries to push Fern and Frieren closer together, until eventually Heiter decides that Frieren has once again reintegrated herself to live with mortals, and Frieren takes on Fern as her ward. At which point, Heiter allows himself to die, no longer artificially extending his life, peacefully. Now, Fern is observant, disciplined, and an incredibly talented mage, and thus she kind of acts as the foil to Frieren's chaotic energy. And thus, over the course of chapters, basically like 4 to 13, the dynamic between Fern and Frieren is kind of just shored up. See, Fern wants to become a strong magician who can stand on her own, and Frieren's lifetime goal is to collect all of the magic this world has to offer. And therefore, in order to collect all of the magic this world has to offer, not only does Frieren have to hunt down magic in the most dark, damp, and obscure corners of the world, but also it means she has to master all of the magic that people would identify as useless, like magic that makes flowers grow, or magic that can clean your clothes, and so on and so forth. And for a while, it is just Frieren and Fern. That is, until eventually, Frieren's quest for all magic brings her to a solar dragon's nest. See, Frieren is in a perpetual hunt for grimoires, because grimoires have magic. And more specifically than anything, Frieren is trying to hunt down grimoires that originally belonged to Flom. See, Flom is a legendarily powerful mage who lived about 1,000 years ago in the Frieren universe. And Flom was unique amongst legendary magicians on account of the fact that she was human. However, on account of the fact that she was trained by the greatest ever living magician, Frieren, who currently still to this day sits atop the magic world, because she, like Frieren, is an immortal elf, she, even as a human, had a pretty good chance at becoming a legendarily powerful magician. Now, Flom is also the person who was responsible for training Frieren in magic, and therefore was the person who got Frieren interested in the idea of collecting all of the magic this world has to offer, and the person who introduced the concept to Frieren of constantly suppressing your magical aura to trick demons into believing that you are weaker than you actually are, so you can catch them by surprise and kill them easier. Something that Frieren and a lot of the other legendarily powerful magicians deemed as below themselves because they don't believe that they should have to resort to such underhanded tactics to kill things that they believe are under them, like demons. Anyways, Frieren's quest for an infinite amount of magical knowledge.
and also, I think a huge chunk of Frieren fans wished and would want more action. I know they do, especially with all the other animes that are out now, like Solo Leveling and One Piece. I'm pretty sure they will also watch Naruto. Like, even though they don't say it out loud, like, I know they want more action for sure. Season 1 sprinkled in combat just enough to keep like engagement high, but I'll be honest, those some of those moments, the animation was alright, but season 2, I feel like there's a lot more pressure now. So if they don't come with more action, the action if the action don't increase, then I feel like Frieren will probably lose its hype, I should say, in identity.
Brings her and Fern to a village where a solar dragon lives. Because, like I said earlier, Frieren heard that there was a grimoire in the solar dragon's nest. However, after Fern fires a shot of magical power at the dragon and it causes no damage whatsoever, the two of them run away to the nearby village, where they're introduced to our third main character in this story, Stark, a boy who carries a gigantic axe who's deemed as the hero of this village because 3 years prior to Fern and Frieren's appearance in the village, the solar dragon had been rampaging through the village when it came across Stark, who stared the dragon down and caused it to retreat. At least that's what those in the village believed. In actuality, it's revealed that Stark only stared the dragon down because he was too afraid to move, and the dragon spared him on a whim. However, since the dragon hadn't reattacked the village over the course of the 3 years that Stark had been there, the village treated him like their protector and thus loved him. But when asked why he didn't just go out and kill the solar dragon, if seemingly the solar dragon was afraid of him, Stark revealed to Frieren and Fern that he was too afraid to ever fight it again. However, that didn't mean that he was shirking his training, as it was revealed to both Frieren and Fern that Stark had been basically cutting a mountain in half for years. See, Stark had actually been trained by Eisen, the dwarf who was originally a part of Frieren's OG squad. And Eisen trained...
The character depth and the character stagnation of Frieren, Frieren as a character worked because she's like emotionally restrained, but the restraints kind of have like limits. Like in season 2 doesn't push her emotion. If Frieren season 2 doesn't push like her emotional development forward in a noticeable way, critics would probably call it like subtle. They'll call it like static. Same goes for like Fern and Stark. Like season 1 laid the foundation, but season 2 must like live up to the hype. Like must justify like the continued presence beyond quiet conversations that repeated themes of time, regret, and like memory. Otherwise, the characters risk feeling like echoes of themselves. The characters just need to evolve. So if you like this video, leave a like and comment how you feel about Frieren season 1 and what you think will happen in season 2 of Frieren. And also subscribe as well. See you next time.